Welcome, everybody, to today's Public and Protective Services Committee meeting. It is May 27th. I'm your chair, Councillor Thiessen, joined today by Councillor Blackmore, Councillor Berg, and Mayor Clayton on this committee. And I'll call this meeting to order. I'll start off with the adoption of the agenda, and I'll look for a motion from Councillor Berg.
Thank you, Chair Thiessen. I would move committee adopt this agenda as presented.
The motion is in order. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none. That motion carries unanimously. Okay, moving right along, we have no delegations, so we'll jump right into our reports. And for that, I'll turn it over to our fantastic chief, Dan Lemieux, for a service area update.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Starting with enforcement services, 3 enforcement officers graduated from the Community Peace Officer Induction Program on May the 23rd. Graduating from the program allows officers to take on additional roles and responsibilities under the Peace Officer Act, increasing their ability to address diverse community needs. And enforcement services continues to monitor and conduct enforcement in the Composite High School parking area, which is an issue that's been brought to our attention recently. So there has been ongoing enforcement, and now we have enhanced signage in that area, and so warnings or tickets have been issued to over 30 drivers just in the last couple of weeks. So that's being addressed. From the RCMP, within the month of May, Corporal Owl in the Community Engagement and Diversity Unit has been busy conducting school presentations on bullying, online safety, policing in the community, and on human trafficking. He's also done other presentations at Odyssey House, Sunrise House, and at the Lifelong Learning Center. Corporal Owl participated in a 3D charity soccer tournament and assisted with the Youth Career Expo at Bonnet. So a very active corporal from our RCMP that does a great job in our community. Much appreciated. From the Recreation Department, the Eastlink Centre will be receiving the Terry Kavanagh Junior Lifeguard Club Award from the Life Saving Society of Alberta at the AGM. The presentation will be in Edmonton on June the 20th, so this award is in recognition for Eastlink Centre running the largest number of Junior Lifeguard Club participants in a community of less than 100,000. So congratulations to the Eastlink Centre for that. And sales for the ever-popular Summer Blast Pass started on Saturday, May 24th, and remain on sale until July 12th. With regards to the Fieldhouse closure, a reminder that the Eastlink Centre Fieldhouse floor refurbishment begins on June the 2nd, and the Fieldhouse will be closed until June 22nd for this significant renovations. The opening date for the Aquatar outdoor pool remains on track for June the 2nd. Enhanced security surveillance measures have been successfully completed during the off-season, and over 30 school groups have already booked their year-end celebrations, serving over 2,700 students. And Seniors Week, the annual Seniors Week potluck at Eastlink Centre will be held on Friday, June the 6th. And the Here Comes Summer event on June the 6th includes free swimming at the Aquaterra outdoor pool. With regards to events and programming, today the Grande Prairie Stampede will host the annual Stampede Bust Out Barbecue, sponsored by Wapiti Gravel. That'll be from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. in the Bonnet's Energy Center parking lot. And tomorrow, the City of Grande Prairie will host our first annual Stampede Pancake Breakfast at the Bonnet's Energy Center on the Helen Rice Plaza. Both events are free for the public to attend. And our summer camps are now 70% full and have booked over 215 educational programs. And that is my report for today, Mr. Chair. Thank you. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for that update there, Chief Lemieux. Yeah, those summer camps, 70%. I bet you in 2 weeks they'll be full when Chief Lemieux gives his next update. These are popular programs around the community. I have Councillor Berg with a question.
Yeah, super easy question. Chief Lemieux, you mentioned the time for the barbecue today, but not the time for the breakfast tomorrow, just for people that are interested in attending.
Breakfast tomorrow starts 8:30. It's 8:30 to 10 a.m.
Thank you.
Mayor Clayton.
Thanks, Chair Thiessen. Because it's your sort of service area update, I have a question somewhat related to some of the other statistics you shared today. I'm curious if there, and I know the answer, but if you could just tell me, are there currently any outstanding safety grant initiatives available to businesses or residents in the City of Grande Prairie?
Chief Lemieux.
And I mean, for example. And in the past, we had a business program where the city matched funding dollars for motion detectors, additional lighting, etc. Are there any existing grants available for those types of programs?
I'm not aware of grants through the city, but there certainly are always other government grants available. So you may be aware of some that I'm not aware of, but
No, and to my knowledge, there isn't. They had expired. They were fairly well subscribed when we did them. I think it would have been last term. And so if the chair will permit, I was looking to make a motion to get some additional information brought back to this standing committee.
Yeah, you bet. I think that motion is in order.
So, and if I can have specifics, if you're
You
okay.
bet.
Thank you. So I would move that committee direct administration to bring back a report identifying opportunities for cost-sharing programs for window replacements, for commercial building window replacements. I've heard a lot from our community recently in regards to broken windows. Every time you have to replace a window in your building, it increases your insurance costs, etc. These can't simply be mitigated with improved public safety. They really are just simply a cost of business, unfortunately. And so I would like to see more about that. I know there are other municipalities in Canada currently doing this, and so I'd like committee to explore that. So I would ask that administration bring back any pertinent information for committee and council to consider. Thank you.
Okay, I'm just going to wait and see that motion. I don't disagree, and I believe what Mayor Clayton is referring to is the CPTED grant, the Crime Prevention Through Environmental Design, which in its later years was largely subscribing to video surveillance outside of businesses,
Lighting,
rather than the lighting, although that was included. I think this is a thoughtful motion. Sorry, I just can't find it here on my thing. Oh,
It's
there.
under service area.
Yeah, I got it. Would you be willing to, as a friendly amendment, to add any CPTED, like the former CPTED program, the CPTED, to that? I know it's about windows and stuff like that, but if we can catch the perpetrators breaking a window, we can replace the window, help the business in some way, shape, or form, improve the lighting or whatnot. I just feel like the reason I want to look over this is I feel like this is just addressing windows rather than exterior damage or crime prevention, which essentially this is.
Yeah, my intent was to keep it relatively simple because there are existing programs. It would be something easy for council to implement. If we wanted to revisit the initiatives that we had previously with surveillance cameras, motion detectors, lights, etc., I think that's a bigger project than I was looking at. Happy to support an additional motion, but this is really just looking at windows because there are programs already in existence in other municipalities.
Okay. All right. Well, I asked my question to the mayor. If she answered it appropriately for my vote. Any other questions, discussion, or debate? Seeing none, I'll call to question. That motion carries unanimously. Thank you for that, Councillor Blackmore.
I just have a quick question, Chief Lemieux, about the fieldhouse floor. What are we doing to the floor? Normally it closes for just cleaning and repainting of lines. Are we doing something more than that this year?
Yes, thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. So the floor, basically the floor surface needs to be redone. There's bubbles, and also we are going to relocate some of the holes that were drilled for the volleyball, because the volleyball, the way it's structured right now, have limited space at one end. So there's a couple things happening, but we're totally resurfacing the floor surface and repositioning some of the holes, and also some of the lines. Some of the sports, like pickleball in particular, have different line requirements. So we're repainting all of the lines also.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chief Lemieux. Thanks for the question, Councillor Blackmore. Any other discussion or debate on the service area update? Seeing none, we will move right along to item 4.2, the Grande Prairie Police Commission and Grande Prairie Police Service updates. I know these These presenters here had some really good news earlier this morning that council had the privilege of attending, and I'll turn it over to Chief Lemieux to introduce.
So we'll start with the Grande Prairie Police Committee. So I'd like to invite Chair Wong and the officer in charge of the Grande Prairie RCMP, Mr. Steve McLeod, to present the information.
Awesome. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you, Chair Thiessen, Council, Committee, and Administration. My name is Dan Wong. I'm the chair of the Grande Prairie Policing Committee that provides governance and oversight of the RCMP in Grande Prairie. I'm joined today by Superintendent Steve McLeod, who is the officer in charge of the Grande Prairie Detachment. So we're here today to present the quarterly update of policing services here in Grande Prairie between January to April of this year, and the priorities for the RCMP for their 2025-2026 annual performance plan. So I'll start with the updates. So from the municipal crime statistics, break and enters for that time period are showing a 43.1% decrease from 109 events in 2024 to 62 in 2025. Theft of motor vehicles decreased by 17% from 104 to 86. Theft under 5,000 stayed relatively the same from 481 in 2024, also 481 in 2025. For criminal code offenses, total person crimes decreased by 4.1% in that same time period. Property crime saw a 1.7% increase, and total criminal code saw a 5.3% decrease. For just to get it in context here, for April of 2025, so in a 1 month period, some of the activities that they've seen is 34 theft of motor vehicles, 19 break and enters, 8 provincial roadside suspensions, 133 files with the spousal abuse survey code, and 1,886 files with victim services unit. So I'd like to pause there to see if there's any questions on that update before we go on to the annual performance plan.
I'll turn it over to committee. Looks like Councillor Berg has a question.
Yeah, thanks, gentlemen, for the report. Just curious around the vehicle thefts. Are those still primarily around people leaving keys in the winter in a running vehicle, or are you finding otherwise?
No, I would say, thank you for the question, Councillor. It continues to be in support of other criminal activity, I believe, and it's purposeful. So although there is a slight decrease, the number for me was still high. It was at 34 at the last count. I've initiated some crime reduction strategies and a focus around that particular issue, not only to explore what the actual cause is and to present to the community what they can do for their part to prevent that, but also to solely target those offenders that are most likely involved in that activity. So, like I said, it's part of a greater activity. People are stealing vehicles then to go conduct those business or residential break and enters. So our crime analyst has prepared information for us, and our teams have been tasked with targeting those most likely and to come up with strategies. Moving forward, starting in June, in relation to your question, I've also started a crime reduction. For those who have been around a long time, we used to have what was called ComStat, computer statistics, in providing us direction in our crime reduction strategies. So starting in June, we're going back to that model that was very successful, which will be chaired by myself. There will be taskings and accountabilities with respect to not just auto theft, but any increase in a crime area within the community, where then there'll be a plan to address that. So even if it's a mischief complaint, so we'll look at hot spots, not just the crime type itself, but areas where there's higher crime, and then any increase to calls for service that we can target, come up with a plan for, and then respond to that need for the community.
Wonderful. I appreciate that, the work that you're doing. as a follow-up then, or just more of a comment, so it's more targeted theft than theft of opportunity?
I would say it's a little bit of both. Coming out of the wintertime, there are those thefts of opportunity, just like B&Es. I suspect that they're down because that's with warmer weather, there's less of a need to seek shelter. But I do know particularly that these are being sought after for the use in other criminal offenses.
Okay, thank you.
I'll look to other members of committee. I do have a question, and it's in regards to the spousal abuse stats. Like, all the other stats are amazing, and I love to see the crime being reduced across the community. But the spousal abuse stats really worried me. And the reason why it worried me is that in 2024, we had 526 total reports. And year to date of 2025, we have 524. So it's good that people are calling in complaints when it comes to spousal abuse. But a question to you or the members, is there a specific theme around why we have an increase? Is it economics? Is it, just being stuck around the same person the whole time? Is it a lack of counseling services? And then my other question to that is after we receive these complaints and we respond to them, does the RCMP do anything to follow up besides victim services? As I see, some people have been referred, but many have not forgone with the victim services counseling. Is there any other follow-up that the RCMP does for the victims of spousal abuse?
Thank you for your questions, Councillor. There was a couple of questions in that. First of all, going back to my conversation about targeting and focusing on particular offenses or offense categories, when I saw the number of domestic violence offenses, that's always a challenge because those are things that happen in the home. Sometimes we look and say there's not a lot of things that we can do proactively to prevent that. It's simply a stat that's reported, an offense that happens. But what I want to look at moving forward is what can we do? And often with domestic violence, you can't target that. There's not a proactive way of dealing with an offender per se. But in previous attachments I've ran, in previous units, there are opportunities when we see a rise like that or a significant number to look at what a relationship with Crown Counsel is in the area. And I'm speaking in general. I want to look at why those numbers are high here. But often that's building a relationship with Crown Counsel. It's trying to understand if these are repeat offenders, if there's a lack of enforcement or a lack of consideration for appropriate conditions when they are arrested the first time, what follow-up wraparound services are available in that particular community. So I don't have an answer for you why our numbers are what they are, but it bleeds again into when I see a stat like that, and it's more than a stat, it's people's lives in that case. But what my intention is to start digging in and peeling the layers back of the onion to see what we can do as a police service. And that again, I go back to it, that's one offense category or type, but it's difficult to be proactive in. But that's my intention, is to understand that and look at where that gap is. I can't speak to what's going on currently, but perhaps if you ask the question next month, we'll have a better answer. Does that answer your question, or?
Yeah, largely. I guess you did spur another question. I have Councillor Blackmore in the queue here as well. But the other question that you spurred was, let's say we have a repeat offender abusing his children or spouse, or vice versa. But usually, generally, it's men. What do we do on the second offense? Like, is there a referral? I know there's other organizations, like Victim Services is there, but John Howard Society of Grande Prairie, they help to support the victims as well as to rehabilitate the abuser as well through the programs that they offer. And there's other great organizations in town like that. Are we doing anything? Is it just jail time for a repeat offense? Is it a fine? Is it mandatory counseling services? How do we go with that?
And thank you for the question. And I will circle back because I did miss one of your questions. Part of the provincial policing standards and some of our RCMP policies and procedures with respect to domestic violence are not only to make a good decision in the first instance of whether there's an arrest to be made in a prosecution to forward. What happens after that is in the Crown's hands. But there are steps in the event where there is we don't proceed with a charge in the first instance, that we have mandatory follow-up with the victim of that offense to continue to assist, support, and monitor that situation. So where there may, in the first instance, either not have been enough evidence to proceed with an arrest or charge, or what we find most often is a reluctance on the part of the victim, and that's kind of consistent with that profile of offending. We continue to go back and try and build a relationship, try and garner trust, and continue to see if there's evidence to pursue that. And sometimes we can't. But we do have procedures and policies in place that are documented to follow up, because that was one of your first questions. In terms of the services, we as an organization can't direct them to direct an offender to the service or a victim. But this is where I would like to follow up with the local Crown here. Oftentimes, if we have that relationship with Crown and discuss what the best, look at these a little more than just a simple prosecution, but look at the big picture, and perhaps there's deferrals where you bypass a court system in receipt of training or psychological assistance, depending if you're the victim or the offender. There are options there outside of just straight a court process. I think we've learned over time that simply arresting somebody, putting them in jail, doesn't solve the cycle of violence.
Exactly. Okay, cool. Thank you for your answers. I appreciate that. Councillor Blackmore.
Just a follow-up question about that. We hear lots across Canada about issues with catch and release, and I'm wondering if that impedes your ability to create a safer environment for families who are dealing with domestic violence. And then my second question is kind of a follow-up to that as well. I know some communities have a domestic violence hotline. Do we have that here?
So your first question, and thank you, Councillor. I think I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge that catch and release across the country provides significant challenges for the police. What I can say is I and colleagues do our best with the piece of that we have control over, and the piece that we have control over is making well thought out and articulated arrests where we can, making suggestions to our local Crown Council with respect to release conditions, and then unfortunately it's out of our hands after that. But that's where I say the relationships that the police have with their local Crown office, the establishment of some programs, sometimes makes that better. And that's what I would hope that we could accomplish here in Grande Prairie is, for example, if we have a repeat or prolific offender and there's an arrest made, it's that we take steps that is a little more than just sending the file over to Crown Council and rolling the dice. What I would expect to see, and what I understand does happen with our members, is there's a consultation and a conversation that goes along with that. And sometimes that helps. Sometimes, because we have to understand that the Crown Council office here and everywhere is overwhelmed with files, just like the police going to the calls for service. And sometimes a number is just a number for them, but when we make an effort to have that conversation about the significance of this particular offender, sometimes we're a little more successful. And your second question was about the hotline, and I'm not aware of a hotline.
Okay.
And
that's for a later date.
And for that, but those are discussions I think when I have with my own team is about what options can we to look at to resolve that. Those are options that I would obviously bring back to the right partner agencies, but those are things that we would consider.
Thank you.
Any other questions? One thing, Councillor O'Toole leaned in, and I think he's just kind of looking for a demographic, so I'll ask this question for him. He said, are you aware of what are some of the causes of this? Are we talking like drug and alcohol, like that causes that in the domestic? Is it a cultural thing? Is it trauma based? Like, what are a lot of like?
Thank you for the question, and unfortunately, my answer to that is yes. It's
all the above.
It's all the above. Economics plays a factor into that in some communities, and I'm gonna suggest in a town or a community where there's seasonal work or seasonal employment, or maybe a change in for an oil and gas community, and maybe there's a change in the oil and gas business that affects people. They take that home. There's that puts pressure and stresses in their life. Then you add alcohol to that. Now you've got a perfect situation for violence due to the frustration. So yeah, economy plays a part in it. Culture brings a part in it, depending on what community that is. So it's a little bit of everything. It's hard to say that it's just one thing.
That answers your question. Yeah, I see him nodding along. Cool. Well, thank you very much for this. As disheartening as it is to see that our spousal abuse stats are going up, and this has been a problem in our community for a long time, probably lots of communities, I'll put a little silver lining around that cloud and saying at least more victims are reaching out and making those calls for service and calls of complaint and addressing that issue. So at least we know that maybe there's less hidden domestic violence incidents out there and more people that are willing to engage with their law enforcement.
I think you've actually commented. I think you're right. I think it is a win to have an increase in those numbers. Unfortunately, the numbers did not represent the offending that was taking place over the last number of years. So for the numbers to be in front of us, I actually think that's a win for these communities. You've summed it up exactly right.
Thank you very much for that, and an opportunity for both the abused and the abuser to seek out counseling and hopefully find a way to reform their lives. But thank you for all the policing work that you've done in this, and I don't see any other questions around the table, so I'll look for a motion from a committee member. Oh yeah, we're not done yet. Sorry, Mr. Wong. I'll send it back to you, Chair Wong.
No problem, Chair Thiessen. The other portion of the report has the 2025-2026 annual performance plan for the RCMP in Grande Prairie. That plan was informed by 2 town halls that were held in November of 2024, as well as a stakeholder engagement in April of this year that included Mayor Clayton and city administration, as well as members of the policing committee. So the priorities that were established out of that, first one, collaborate. Oh, and these aren't in priority from one being the most important. These are just 3 of the highest priorities that were identified. Okay. So first one on the list was collaborate with partners in transition to the municipal police service. Obviously, RCMP are working diligently to make sure the service integration with GPPS is happening, as well as focusing on employee wellness. Obviously, it's a stressful time for RCMP members who they know that they're going to eventually have to exit Grande Prairie unless they join the Grande Prairie Police Service. And those decisions are personal and they're not for everybody. So we're trying to make sure that their mental health is being addressed at the same time. Giving them lots of notice, uprooting families does cause a lot of anxiety. Mm-hmm. Second priority there was enhanced community relations to build trust and confidence in RCMP, and that priority is addressed through the community engagement and diversity. RCMP are continuing to work with their Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Advisory Committee to establish those priorities and work through them, as well as focus on investigational integrity. So when complainants do file a complaint against RCMP members, they want to make sure that they are being consistently updated in terms of where the steps or which step into the investigation that's being handled for the member that's being investigated, as well as whether or not there's a resolution that's being sought out. Third priority is crime reduction. So crime reduction, of course, enhances public safety. So the way they plan to address that is priority target initiative. That's to target prolific and priority offenders. We all know that a large number of the crimes are being conducted by a small percentage of the criminals out there. So their crime analyst is looking to identify who those high priority targets are and focus in on those. And we could make a big, move the needle a big way just by taking those steps. Also through their Connect Grande Prairie program. So that's their situation table where they get to discuss how to best handle investigations. On that note too, for crime reduction, RCMP are going to engage and work with GPPS specialized units. So there have been four units that they're working with, the community engagement team, community standards unit, the community peace officers, and the enforcement service bylaw officers. All those priorities are designed to enhance visibility and community safety in the downtown core, or they want to focus on the downtown core and focus in the area surrounding Wapiti House because there is a lot of social and civil disorder there. I think so far we're seeing some measurable steps. When Chief Lacusta comes up here, he'll talk a little bit about that as well. Just the concerted effort on these hot spots, I think, is making a really big difference downtown.
Awesome. Thank you for that. I have Councillor Berg with the question.
Yeah, thanks, Chair Wong. You'd mentioned the stress among staff members, and I certainly don't want to dismiss that in the least. We've historically seen a high turnover of RCMP here in the city. So question actually for Superintendent McLeod. Can you update us on the Claremont detachment, and are you anticipating a lot of members that are currently in the Grande Prairie detachment shifting over to Claremont?
Thank you for the question. All of the members that were assigned to the provincial policing agreement have all moved out of the detachment, save for some of our provincial identification services. There were only 2 vacant spots in that unit, and there's processes underway that may likely be filled by the municipal members looking to stay in the community. But there wasn't a large number of spots. There were 2 newly created positions, and then the remainder of the positions are all filled there.
Okay. Yeah, and I just want to address that those that love our community that are RCMP members, we thank them and wish them success.
Thank you.
Thanks for that, Councillor Berg. I'll look for any other questions on the priorities. I see Councillor Blackmore.
If the chair is ready, I would make a motion to receive for information.
Yeah, that's appropriate. I was hoping someone would do that motion. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, I'll call the question. And that motion carries 3-0. Thank you very much, Superintendent McLeod, for being here. Thank you for your work on the Policing Committee and Commission. Chair Wong, I know you're going to stay seated as our next report comes up. And I'll turn it back over to Chief Lemieux to introduce this handsome uniformed gentleman.
And I don't think these two need an introduction, but I'll turn it back over to Chair Wong.
Welcome, Chair Wong and Chief Lacusta, as I alluded to before, and I'll hand the floor back to you.
Thank you, Chair Thiessen. So my name is Dan Wong. I'm the chair of the Police Commission, and I'm joined today by Chief Dwayne Lacusta, who is the Chief of Police for the Grande Prairie Police Service. So we're going to present to you the quarterly transition update for January to March of 2025, and also the financial statements for 2024, as well as the first quarter update for 2025.
Awesome. Thank you.
We'll start with four areas on the quarterly transition update, starting with the organizational update. So the Grande Prairie Police Service received approval from RCMP to occupy an office in the Grande Prairie detachment. So that office is for Inspector Nibs to support both the sworn and civilian employees during the transition. Really key that they were able to get in there to make sure that the culture and practices of the newly established GPPS are going to be preserved. Grande Prairie Enforcement Services, they held their strategy session and identified social disorder and traffic as their key priorities. GPPS continues to evaluate the mobile outreach unit, and they're exploring ways to for their potential integration into the new Community Safety and Wellbeing Directorate. GPPS entered into a new agreement, so it's a contract with an IT specialist that used to work for EPS to serve as their enterprise architect to design and implement the IT system and solutions. They also initiated an RMS data conversion from PROS to the new niche system. So part of that ensures a secure conversion of the data and to pre-charge the files to the Edmonton Police Service niche system for use by GPPS. So GPPS has also drafted their policy and procedure manual. That's over 1,400 pages of procedures and policy documentation. They're currently focusing on finalizing the specialized areas to ensure completion of 163 Alberta provincial policing standards. Finally, under that area, a community standards unit has been developed in response to social and civil disorder impacting the community. That consists of the newly graduated sworn police officers. Under the recruitment update, GPPS received 288 applications for the 14 positions open to recruit training class number 2. So number 2 is currently receiving their training. They continue to hold their APCAT and APREP testing. Applications in that quarter were also being accepted for the Experienced Officer Program, EOP number 4. Their swearing-in ceremony is next week on June 2nd, and that'll be held at Cedar Point. Skipping over to the training update, so the 3 officers that commenced in EOP number 3, they all completed or commenced their training. All 12 members of the recruit training class number 1 successfully graduated on February 21st. 6 of those members joined the RCMP detachment to complete their field training. The other 6 members have been temporarily assigned to the CSU. Experienced Officer Program number 3 members graduated alongside the new recruits on February 21st. And 14 members of RTC number 2 commenced training on March 31st with their graduation set for September 27th. So upcoming in 2025, we have an Experienced Officer Program number 4 who will commence training in May. Key deliverables will be developed by PSES, the Enforcement Services, to measure what is needed for GPPS to become, that is the provincial, Safety and Emergency Services, for GPPS to be declared police of jurisdiction. So they're just resolving that right now. And recruit training class number 3 members will be finalized coming up. And, that would be another class that will commence hopefully in the fall of this year.
Awesome.
I'll pause there before we go on to financials for questions.
Yeah, look for questions here. Councillor Burke.
Yeah, thanks. This one actually comes from Councillor O'Connor, who's not on this committee, but we recently received an email from a gentleman that had a medical issue and was on the Muskosipi Park trails and was clipped by a number of people on bikes that were just taking up the entire trail. How are we monitoring that? Now, again, because I wouldn't classify this necessarily under social disorder, but how are we monitoring our Muskosipi Park trails for essentially people that might be considered rude?
Thanks for that, Councillor. I'm unaware of the occurrence there, but with the establishment, with the review that we've conducted with our enforcement services and with the development of our service, we do have a focused efforts towards Muskogee Park and the many parks, or the bike paths, walking paths that we have in the city. So we have increased the training we have for members to ride our mountain bikes. They do have to go through an approved course, and we're happy to say that we have another course coming up here in short order where we can increase that. We've also increased the number of bikes that we have at our disposal. Further to that, we're just nearing the final stages when it comes to other supports that we have for the Grande Prairie Police Service, which will include drone programs that are going to be able to provide air support visuals of our park system as well there to deal with social disorder, potentially encampments, also offering that oversight for fire services as well there to look for hotspots. We did have a fire bug in the park system there earlier this year, so we're taking steps towards that to address a stronger presence in the park system.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for the question, Councillor Berg, and the answer, Chief Lacusta. Just to follow up on that one, yesterday I was heading from my house and country club to a youth council meeting with council, and I got stopped waiting for pedestrians across the road, but it was at that point and these two kids got halfway across the road, a dirt bike up from the sidewalk and across the crosswalk, and the kids thought it was great, but I was like, what's the license plate on that dirt bike? But obviously it was a dirt bike, didn't have a license plate on it. So when we're talking about e-bikes that can go certain speeds and other stuff, I really appreciate that we're monitoring the Muskogee trails, and I know it must be really, really hard to monitor the entire city, but if I didn't know how to address this. I drove away going, well, I got this big meeting, but how do I contact like the police about somebody riding a dirt bike on the sidewalks? South side of town.
Yeah, great observation, and definitely not legal to be operating a motorbike without a dirt bike in city limits there. So stuff like that needs to be reported. We need to know, real time if possible. But we do see that pattern. We're able to respond to it accordingly and deploy our officers. There could be a chance that it's the same person that's engaged in this type of activity. So any information we have, we can better address it.
Okay. Yeah, black dirt bike. That's all I got. A young gentleman, probably looked like he's in his mid-20s. I don't see any other questions right now, so I guess I'll hand it back to Chair Wong for the financials.
Sure. Actually, if I could ask Chief Lacusta just to talk quickly on the CSU. I have a bunch of network and friends that have businesses in the downtown of Grande Prairie, and anecdotally they've told me that they really appreciate seeing that presence down there, and that they've seen a direct reduction in the amount of crime that's impacted them personally. So I wouldn't mind just hearing what Chief Lacusta has to say about that.
Yeah, I like your flow. Chief Lacusta, tell us about the CSU.
Thanks for that, Chair Wong. So we developed a business case for the Community Standards Unit in response to a challenge that we faced with the deployment of our officers once they had graduated. So quick pivot, we were able to build a business case that was supported by the Ministry of Public Safety and Emergency Services. These are newly graduated recruits. But we were reacting specifically to a number of concerns that were obvious to us, whether through stakeholder engagement or just through our own observations with social disorder in the downtown core that's impacting the Downtown Business Association. So the team is there strategically to have a social presence, to take enforcement action, to deal with this situation that's impacting our business community. And it's not to say that they're solely focused on the downtown core. That's primarily where the high density of occurrences are taking place there. They're in and out of the businesses. They're having a positive impact. And in policing, we call it just social presence. Social presence is the lowest use of any type of enforcement that we can have. And that's having an impact because the antisocial behavior does subside when you have a uniform presence. It has subsided when we have 6 marked patrol cars in the downtown core on a regular basis. And in future deployments, it will include mountain bike patrols as well there. We had gone from hourly calls for service in the Wapiti area to no calls for service to the frontline officers with the RCMP. So it's having a great impact. I'm glad that observation is there, and we're always seeking feedback from the community to see if there's a way that we can enhance it.
That's great. Thank you so much for that update. Chief Lacusta, I got Councillor Blackmore, and then I'll ask my question. You usually ask my questions before I do, so let's see if we're bad enough.
Bet you this is a new one. I'm only asking this because you're here and we've been talking a little bit about operations, but I've had some people ask me questions about body cameras and when are they on? When does how do they work? Who's monitoring them? And if I am the one in front of the camera, can I tell if it's running?
Yes. So there's going to be two parts to this, Councillor. So the RCMP have deployed their body-worn cameras. So they're following our officers that are deployed under the command of the RCMP are following their policies and procedures. I won't speak to that, but there are strict parameters around it to have those cameras essentially on whenever they're engaging with the public. The community standards members, the 6 members plus the sergeant for 7, we're basically in a trial phase right now with the provider, with some other technologies that's associated to the body-worn cameras. And our policy is when you have interactions with members of the public, when you're responding to a call for service, those cameras will be on. The cameras are there to increase transparency and accountability to the actions of the officers, but also to the actions of some of the subjects that we're dealing with.
Does that answer your question?
Can I tell if it's on? Can I tell if it's running, the camera?
There is indications of when the camera is running, but the officers will advise you that you are being recorded.
Okay. Yep, that's good.
Awesome. Thank you for the question, Councillor Blackmore.
I think they're great.
Yeah, I think they're great too. I think this is a nice step of technology that has transparent policing. And go ahead, Chief Lacusta.
And if I may, because if I read into the question potentially is there's a whole redaction process. So if there's any concerns from the public that they're not involved in a situation and their face is going to show up on potential police reports or presentations in court, we have a redaction process where only the subjects involved are actually part of anything that's released.
Yeah, like the old TV show Cops, but our guys are better. Yeah. Hey, no, they're good boys, good boys. Chief Lacusta, I had a question, and actually, Councillor Blackmore surprised me. She didn't ask my question. So, in regards to the CSU and the review of our mobile outreach unit, it sounds like they work pretty direct in alignment, or at least how they serve. Are they side by side, or are we reviewing MOU to replace it with the CSU?
Yeah, great question. So we've recently brought in a person to develop our community safety well-being plan. So we are required under the Police Act, the Police Amendment Act, to have a CSWB, community safety well-being plan. Mobile outreach will be a part of it. CSU, the entire service, will be a part of it. And what CSWB is going to bring is the necessary authority, structure, and accountability to respond to complex issues where public safety and social vulnerability intersect. And really what it comes down to is when there's factors, criminogenic factors that are present that's impacted this. And what I mean by criminogenic factors is characteristics or situations that increase the likelihood of criminal behavior. So when we're dealing with someone in real time, are those behaviors influenced by some type of vulnerability, whether it's mental health, addictions, homelessness? And mobile outreach will have a place for that. All our officers will have a place for that. But we look at some of the business lines that we have within the city that already exist. So housing, community development, family and community social services. Those have long-lasting strategic long-term goals to build resiliency, but with the CSWB, it's going to be a field response. So when we're dealing with the subject real time, we'll be able to address those concerns to get the appropriate or take the appropriate action to help that individual that might be in crisis or engaging in that criminal type behavior.
So they're complementary, and one is if there's a fear that it might escalate into further, perhaps violence. Or
yes, and as we develop further with the Integrated Emergency Communication Center, the plan behind that is to address those calls for service real time. Do we need a police officer, a badge and a gun showing up, or do we need a social worker? Do we need a crisis responder? Do we need connections to the National Suicide Hotline, because police have historically been the last line of defense for many of these situations, but we're structuring ourselves to where we provide that appropriate response so we can deal with it appropriate, but also free up our officers for those situations where we're required to respond to.
Awesome. I love that. Not cookie cutter at all. I appreciate cool the diversity within our force. Look for any other questions. I see none here, so I guess I'll turn it back over to you, Chair Wong, on the financials.
Thank you, Chair Thiessen. So in your packages, I'll start with the Policing Services Operational Variance Report. That was for the period ending December 31st, 2024. That's for the whole year. And I'll just break it down by by the 7 service areas. A lot of these variances were due to timing of initiatives starting or the timing of hiring a staff. So starting with the Police Commission had a $26,000 positive variance. Grande Prairie Police Service transition costs saw a $111,000 excess expenditure for the year. The police service and chief of police, that's the tax-funded portion of the service, saw a $790,000 positive variance. Enforcement services, $1.28 million positive variance. Mobile outreach, $41,000 positive variance. Police support, $730,000 positive variance, and the RCMP contracted service saw about $518,000 as a positive variance. So all those positive variances are surpluses, which totals $3.28 million in savings to the operational budget. Now, $1.7 million of that budget was already reflected in city fiscal services, and that's because in 2024, the managed manpower budget was being held within city fiscal services. But for 2025 going forward, all these costs will be fully allocated to the police services budget. But it's very important for, we felt, for committee to see the actual true cost accounting of police services. So out of that $3.28 million that you're seeing there, the net savings for areas that weren't already reported is just over $1.5 million. Moving on to the capital budget. Grande Prairie Police Service fleet additions saw a surplus of $287,000. Enforcement services fleet vehicles also saw a surplus of $171,000 for a total of $458,000 that's returned to the capital budget. And again, that was just due to timing of hires. If you don't hire the people, you don't need the vehicles for them at that time. Moving on to the 2025 first quarter operational variance for March, ending March 31st. I'm just going to summarize this as an increase of expenditures over what was budgeted of $685,000 roughly. However, the projected variance to the end of the year is still going to be $597,000 in surplus. They just had to kickstart a bunch of initiatives this year, or at the beginning of this year, and things will just iron out over the rest of the year. Okay. So that is, takes us to the last page, which is the capital budget for police services for the first quarter. Fleet additions, basically we'll see $130,000 surplus, with everything else being the spend being anticipated exactly where the budget was accounted for, ending in about $2.45 million.
Awesome. Thank you for that. I'll turn it over to committee for questions. I have Councillor Berg.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Thiessen. Gentlemen, of course, at 9 o'clock this morning, we had a provincial announcement. Would you guys like to speak to that?
Yes, thank you very much, Councillor. So as part of the commitment from the Government of Alberta, the Public Safety Emergency Services Ministry, they had committed to I believe it was $18.9 million, and we're up to, I believe at this point, about 17. that money is being used to cover the cost of the transition. So it's not coming directly to the Grande Prairie taxpayers. Those are provincial dollars that are funding everything from our vehicles to our recruiting to our training and all the infrastructure that's required to build a brand new police service. So that has been very beneficial to the city of Grande Prairie to prove our transition successful.
Thank you.
Very good. Any other questions? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion. Councillor Berg.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Thiessen. I would like to move the committee receive this report for information.
That motion is in order. I'll call to question. And that motion carries. Councillor Blackmore.
I would move we go in camera for the next portion of the meeting.
That is found in your agenda for anyone watching online. Any discussion or debate as to why we shouldn't go into camera? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? I wanted to raise my hands. And that motion carries. We'll just take a second here to clean out the room here from outstanding items list, and that'll be headed up by Chief Lemieux.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So there's no changes to the outstanding items list.
Any questions? Oh, Councillor Blackmore.
I move we accept May 27th outstanding items list as presented for information.
That motion is in order. Call to question. And that motion carries. And with that, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody, for sticking around for it all and for the great questions asked during. We'll see you for our next committee, Operational Services.